Okay, it's December 22nd, 2023. This video is for non-musicians. This video is not for musicians that already know all of this stuff. What I want to talk about today is one way that musicians compose and have been composing, or producing music, I should say. Let's not use the word compose because I think a lot of people would, including myself, would disagree that this is composing. But this is one way to produce, in floaty quotes, music. And this has been happening for probably about 25 years or so at least, or at least as long as the software has been around, probably longer. And the technique that we're going to talk about today is loop-based music. And the reason this is not for musicians is because musicians that play an instrument very likely are not going to produce music this way. And people that produce music from certain genres probably would never use this type of method. But it is a method that is important to understand because there's some underlying techniques and underlying history that will then also inform our approach to artificial intelligence as it is applied to music. So back in the heady days of the early to mid 90s, there was a program called ACID, which I believe was one of the very first programs to bring about this type of work. And since then, the feature of using loops in digital audio workstations, or DAWs, has been prevalent and has evolved a great deal. So what do we mean by a loop? Well, let's just take a look at one first. I'm going to take a look at a drum loop first, and I'm going to go here and find one, and we'll see what these look like here. So we got electric guitars, we got a drum intro here. Okay, so let's listen to this. Okay, so what is that we're looking at? Well, we're looking at a piece of digital audio. This digital audio was recorded in probably a real, quote-unquote, real studio by a real player, a real drummer. So the kit was all mic'd up and everything. All of the microphones went into preamps. Those preamps went into a recording console, and that may have been recorded to a tape machine or to a digital recorder of some sort. Even an application like this that we have in front of us, which is Ableton Live, that we're using for this example. So let's take a look at some of these other drum beats that we have here. So we have an intro. We have let's see, we have some chorus stuff. We have some verses. And I'm going to just start with our drums. So we have a pre-chorus one. And I'm going to drop that in there. And let's listen to that whole thing here from the beginning. Okay, and then it cuts off. Now, the idea behind a loop, just as its name would indicate, is that we could repeat this piece of audio for as long as we want. So I can copy this and I can duplicate it. And right at the join point where those two clips come together, everything comes in on time. Now, it just so happens that this drum kit here is part of a package that was recorded at 120 beats per minute, and that's what my project tempo is for now, just for simplicity. And the other thing that's important to note is that this collection of audio files or loops is what's known as a royalty-free audio pack. This is something that might cost anywhere between $20 and $200, depending on the collection of samples that are there. And these are samples. If we looked at this very up close, we would see each of the audio captures here from a digital recording perspective. We see the waveform. If we looked at this in another viewer, we'd be able to see the frequency response of the audio, etc. But what we're really looking at here is what's this performance all about. So now we've got an intro, goes into this pre-chorus, and if I wanted to, then I could just play my own guitar along with that and come up with some type of idea. And I'll have another couple videos that'll touch on that, again, for non-musicians who want to just understand some of this conceptually. But this sample pack that I have here can go much further. So we can actually look at some other instruments here. And let's stick with pre-chorus. So pre-chorus is just part of a song. So typically a song has an intro. The most simple version of a song would be verse, chorus, bridge, verse, chorus. And so sometimes the chorus is repeated after the bridge. It just depends on who wrote the song and what they're going for, what the message of the song is. So in this case, the chorus is typically where the catchiest part is. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Now, if we have our drum kit here playing a pre-chorus part, I want to look for a pre-chorus, maybe an acoustic guitar that can go along with that. And I'm going to drop that in right along there. Oh, that's the chorus. I don't want that one. It's too long. So right away we could see I can make mistakes and I can come back and fix it. So let's take a look at this. Before we listen to this, though, I want to start balancing some stuff out. So I'm going to put this guitar in the left channel. And when we listen to this now, okay, so we got that acoustic guitar there. I'm going to adjust the volume on this just a little bit here, just to make this a little bit less intense as we move forward. And we're going to go find maybe another type of guitar. Let's look at this acoustic guitar 2. So this is another performance of this guitar, and we want to do the pre-chorus. And I'm going to put that a little bit in the right channel. And then just as we did before, we can duplicate both of these to make something that's a little bit longer. And when we go over that seam where those clips meet there, we won't even know that they're different. So it just keeps playing. So I want to stop here and just ask everybody to visualize what's actually kind of happening here, or what happened in order for this to take place. Some time ago, whenever this sample pack was created, there was a live band with real people, and you had a drummer, and in this case, maybe one or two guitar players who were putting down tracks for this particular collection. And they may have done that as a live band, so everybody playing at once, and then all of the different instruments were recorded separately. Or they may have recorded the drums to a click track, and they may have gone over and added everything else one at a time. It's hard to tell. Sometimes in some sample packs, if you're listening to the drums and you listen very carefully, you'll hear the bleed from the other instruments that were playing at that time. In other cases, it's not so clear. But the point is that those started as real people playing real instruments in a studio, which was populated by real engineers, real producers, putting this together. And in this case, it was basically a country music style of material that they were putting together. So, okay, we have this little band, and we can keep that imaginary band in our head. And so we can think about, what would this be used for? This might be maybe a good little backing track for the intro to a podcast or the outro to a podcast. It's just very generic instrumental music. There's not a lot going on yet. But maybe we want to add some development. So then we have other sections of the song here that we can look for. So let's look for our drums. Back to our, let's add some bass first. And we're going to add some bass to the pre-chorus. And I'm going to shorten this pre-chorus section, and then I'm going to find a drums for, let's try to find drums for a verse. Okay. And then we can start building up our other parts for this. So we have our acoustic guitar. And now part of what I'm doing in my head as I'm, I don't want to say composing, but as I am thinking about the music, I'm thinking in my head about what instruments go well with different other instruments. What are some of the things that I want to happen down the line in terms of transitions? And all of that stuff comes from years of experience of playing music with other people, playing music on my own, listening to lots of different types of music over time. And that's just something that really, it's hard to replace that. So now we're going to listen to this now. Let's listen from this part here. So even just simple things like how loud that bass is, I know I need to pull that down. And this is getting into mixing now. So now we actually have something that sounds like a band. Okay, it's kind of starting to build up there. So maybe here's where I want to add, let's grab this bass chorus while I have that. Let's do our acoustic guitar, 2 chorus. So you'll notice I'm keeping the certain type of instrument all together on one track. Acoustic guitar, 1 chorus. And right now I'm limiting myself by how this particular sample pack has been created. So a lot of these decisions about how long the chorus was or how long the verse was that decision has already been made for me. If I was playing these instruments or working with a band live, we could actually determine that on our own as we went through the song. But of course that would cost studio time and just time in general. So we're going to do chorus 1 drums. And when the chorus comes in, I want something else to happen too. I want to add another instrument to add interest here. So I'm going to add electric guitar, chorus 1 is going to come in right here. And that's electric guitar 1. And we're just going to do the 1 electric guitar, but we're going to pan that just a little bit to the right. Okay, so now this is starting to build up. I want to pull some of these values down. Let's just see what this sounds like. We'll play the verse and then into the chorus. Okay, and then the real power of this in terms of songwriting and laying something out is now I could take this whole section here and I can bring another verse right in, and I can go verse, chorus, until until I run out of time or run out of hard drive space. And actually, even that's not true. So in terms of hard drive space right now, each one of these is one loop, one piece of digital audio on my computer. So if I show this in my Explorer, I can see that there's a bunch of files here. These happen to be Rex files, which is a version of audio that's used by some programs. And I can see each one of these loops is just a little bit of audio, maybe, usually under 2 megs, sometimes a little bit bigger. But every one of these references then is just a reference to that single file. So even though I've got 4 copies of something here, I'm only referring to 1 file. Or in this case, I've got 2 copies of the chorus. They're referring to one file. So let's take a step back and talk about what this means for or I should say, what this meant for musicians, because this is old technology. This is, again, early 90s, mid 90s was when this stuff started to come out, and it has only gotten more sophisticated since then. But this basic concept of loop packs, royalty-free, multiple styles, you name the style, there's a loop pack for it. What's it good for? It's good for coming up with an idea for a song. So, like, let's say I wanted something in this style, and now I can think of my own lyrics to sing along with this. And if I'm just a vocalist and I want to demonstrate my vocal ability, maybe I don't care about all the other stuff that goes into making the music for the song. I just want to sing and I just want to come up with a melody to go with this. So I can certainly do that. The other thing is, if you want to make very quick renditions of short clips of music for maybe for commercials or for some purpose where it really is just background, there's not a lot of attention paid to it in terms of something that you want to have a lot of creative input into, such as a podcast or something. This can be another way of accomplishing that. But I wouldn't call it composing, because I didn't choose, when this was recorded, I didn't choose what key it's in. I'm not choosing the rhythm of how they're playing everything, or the speed of what they're doing. So there's lots of decisions that have already been made for me that I have to just accept and say, okay, I'm going to go with what they have here. And then if I want to change it later, maybe I can I can add my own guitar parts. Certainly anything melodic I would probably want to add myself, although there have now been lots of royalty-free packs put out there that have melodic content in them. And that's sort of been where I've drawn the line in terms of working this way. So let's say we want to just take a look at some other instruments real quick here as we finish this out and talk about mixing. So let's add, for the second verse, let's see if there's a fiddle. The fiddle doesn't really come in until the chorus. So we're going to put the fiddle here. We're going to do another chorus, and we're going to put that here. So again, I'm basically painting with sound. That's one way I like to think of this. And let me just listen to this fiddle. So the thing that's interesting about this is this fiddle it's not really giving us a melody, but it's suggesting a melody. You could hear the headphones. So you could actually, if you listen very carefully, you could hear the fiddle player has headphones on, and you could hear the drums coming through the headphones into the violin mic. Either that or they were all playing live and the fiddle player was in a separate room. The thing about this also is that we don't know who that fiddle player was. So the company that released this said they're going to make it royalty free. They also make it anonymous. So there's no way, typically, we don't know who did it. Now there are some exceptions. There's an old set of drum packs that was put out by Mick Fleetwood from Fleetwood Mac. There are named artists that will put their name on something that they have basically said, okay, I'm going to create a bunch of loops and you can make music that sounds like me by using these loops. Again, I'm not going to go near that philosophically. That's not for me. But in this case, the anonymousness of this and the de-identified nature of this is kind of nice, because then you don't have to worry about all of the tracking that would have to go with that. If I had somebody that came in and played on something, I would definitely want to give them credit for that. If not monetary credit, at least a credit line on something. So let's listen to this as it goes from the verse into the new chorus. Okay, so we could go on and fill this out the rest of the way, but I think you get the idea. We'd probably go to a bridge. It might change the key. We'd have to see what they have in here. But depending on what they have here, it probably would work based on how they've got this laid out. It sounds pretty good. If I went to another loop pack and pulled stuff in from another place, it may not match up as much in terms of key or rhythm. And then I'd have to use my judgment and my knowledge from producing music of how to adjust that. And that's a whole other thing. What I do want to take a look at before I wrap this up is just a mixing type of thing. So another thing that a human typically does is they listen to a performance, recorded or otherwise, and they're looking for how to make a good balance of all of the instruments, how to make the song sound the best that it can. And there's a certain amount of science behind that. There's also a certain amount of personal subjective attitude and philosophy that goes into how you want something to sound. That's why we have famous producers like Quincy Jones and Dan Lanois and different people that just have a different take on how things should sound. So in this case, what I would do is I just take a listen to this, and I want to make sure things aren't too hot, too loud. Maybe I want to add some ambience to that fiddle, and we're going to do that in a couple different ways here. So I might add a little bit of reverb to the fiddle just for fun. And the drums, I want everything to sound like it's basically in the same space, which it actually really was when they recorded it. So I don't have to do too much to this. So that's another thing, is that in this case, a lot of that work has already been done. There's only so much I could do to change that, but I can add some maybe to this electric guitar, which already sounds pretty good. Let's listen to this here. Okay. So maybe I'd add it's really not impacting. Even when I add some reverb to that, it's not impacting it too much. Not as much as the fiddle will. So that's going to sound a little better. And so the placement of the instruments, left, right, the combination of which ones are louder versus softer, and the effects that we put on them. Let's say that one thing that we often do with acoustic guitars is we take some of the low end off of the acoustic guitar. So let's say audio effects, and I want to look at I want to pull an EQ in here, and I'm going to put this over both of these guitars, and we're just going to listen to the guitars. Whoop, just the guitars. Okay. So now when I listen to this one, I see there's a lot of low frequency energy here. And maybe I don't want all that. Maybe I want to get rid of that. I'll leave room for the kick drum and the bass guitar. So here's a real extreme version. If I listen to just this guitar, this one here, sorry. Okay, so this can easily completely destroy the song, but if my goal is to get rid of the low end rumble there, that's what I would do. Okay, so all of those decisions also require a bit of science, a bit of creativity, a bit of subjectivity, and but there's also many developing programs of how to handle that have been coming along the last 20 years or so. But for today, this was the main thing I wanted to get across. Working with loops for the non-musical, and certainly this is not the way I make music these days. But if I wanted to do something quick and dirty, to give somebody an example of something, or if they don't have the budget to pay me to do something original from scratch, then yeah, maybe this would work for something like that. So there's a reason that the royalty-free loop market has been has exploded over the last couple decades, and certainly if people were not using them, they wouldn't keep making them. So thanks for listening, and we'll do some more in the next video.